Hello, America. I'm Dr. Council Rudolph. I have a lot to tell you, so please sit down to listen. We're going to start with the story of our Constitution. The Revolutionary War was won in 1776. America back then was made up of 13 states. Each of the states at the end of the war asked to be allowed to do its own thing. They all agreed to come back 10 years later, and the state doing the best would be copied by the rest. They came back 10 years later, 1787, and it turned out all 13 did the same thing. They allowed the majority to take everything away from the minority. It wasn't black and white. It was Catholic Protestant or Protestant Catholic. Even though that was against their religions, they still did it. That's no way to run this country. So the states were all told to go back to their homes, but leave 3 men behind. The groups of 3 men got together and became the writers of our Constitution. It took 6 months, multiple meetings, multiple arguments. They finished it and then realized they didn't let the people speak. So they invited the 13 states back, gave each a copy of the handwritten 4-page Constitution, said to the states, add or subtract anything, come back in 6 months. The states came back in 6 months with what they called the Bill of Rights, but they started with number 10. They handed number 10 to the writers of the Constitution and said, you must approve this one first to get the other 9. What does number 10 say? Any job not specifically given to the federal government in your written Constitution or denied to the states in your written Constitution belongs to the states and the people of those states. The writers were given 24 hours to either approve it or disprove it. They approved it. They got the other 9, and the total of 10 became our first 10 amendments. The First Amendment for free speech came from the people. The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, came from the people. With number 10, it handed the power to the people of every state. The people could say yes or no to anything in their state, and that included federal laws coming out of the federal government. That's how we're supposed to work today. Who took our rights away came 80 years later. 3 things happened simultaneously, which means they were planned by the evil entity. Someone from our government back then sent a letter to European industry, which had started 5 years previously in Europe. There were no machines. Everything in making everything had to be done by a human. They built a building to hold 3,000 employees and got very busy very quickly. They had to expand the building to hold 6,000 employees. They were wanting to move to other areas, so the evilness sent them a letter inviting them to come to America. They wrote back, do you have a place in America where 6,000 people need a job? Yes, he wrote back to them, but only in the northern states. They had to wait till winter was over to come over on a boat. He met them at the dock a very charismatic fellow. He said he would pay for half of the cost to get them started. We need level land. He had it, and he paid for half of it. We need equipment to build the building. He had it, and they paid for half of it. They began building the building. 6 months later, it was halfway up when they discovered they'd been lied to. In Europe, when it was halfway up, 3,000 people had left their addresses. In America, only 6 people left their addresses. They were pissed. They began to tear their building down. Right about then, the cropland in Ireland failed. All the crops could not be grown. The soil had been poisoned by the evil entity. Back then, Ireland, 95% of the population was farmers, 5% was on the coast, they were fishermen. The farmers knew that soil had been poisoned. They knew it wouldn't grow anything anytime soon. Their only hope was to leave Ireland, and out of nowhere, boats showed up offering to take them for free. They went to the boats. Where are you going to take us? A place you can grow things. They went back, got their family, and got on the boats and were brought directly to the northern states, not just to fill the 6,000 jobs of the European industry, but to build the army. When the Irish was fully moved, the white men in the north now outnumbered the white men in the south 20-1. That was a huge shift in population, which, following our own rules, allowed the northern states to get more House of Reserve members. The southern states had to give them up because they had lesser populations. It also created the Republican Party, named after the Republic of Ireland. That way, the Irish thought they were voting for their own people. They were always told to vote Republican. They took the House of Representatives. Took 2 more years before they elected a majority of Republicans in the Senate. 1 more year for the presidential election of 1861. There were 4 candidates running for president. 3 were Democrats from the South. Only 1 was a Republican from the North, Abraham Lincoln, a member of the evil entity. He knew he would win, so he started holding meetings with senators and House members. Word got out from those meetings that they were going to change America. Southerners went to him and said, "What do you mean, change America? The presidential election is a month away. I haven't been elected yet. I can't say anything until and if I get elected." He won the election because he knew he would win, and within weeks of his election, the Northern House of Representatives passed a new federal law. The Northern Senate, Republican Senate, picked it up on the same day and approved it on the same day because they helped write the law. And Lincoln, who helped write the law, signed it into federal law on the same day. What does that law say? Only the federal government has the right to tell a state what it can and cannot do. The Southerners went directly to Lincoln. "You just broke the Constitution. That law is unconstitutional." He went silent. Then one of them correctly said, "The people of no state will vote approval of that law in any state," to which he had to speak. He said, "The people don't matter anymore. We are federal. They have to do what we tell them to do. The southern states wanted no part of that government. They said, we will pull out and form our own country. We will follow the Constitution. Get your federal troops out of our land. But the evil entity knew how to hide things during a war. It knew with the 20-to-1 odds it would win the war. So it kept one fort fully stocked with federal troops in the middle of a river in South Carolina called Fort Sumter. It made the commander of the fort the eldest son of the South Carolina governor, who had joined the Federal Army. A month later, his son invited the governor down to the fort to see the fort he was commanding. He saw 2 guns pointing at boats as they came down the river toward the fort. 2 guns in the back aimed at the same boat as they passed behind the fort. He saw 100 federal troopers. He immediately telegrammed Lincoln, "This part of the river belongs to South Carolina. The fort belongs to South Carolina. Get your federal troops out." Lincoln had the Commerce Secretary answer him, "No, that is a northern river. That's why those federal troops have to stay there." He sent his answer to the Commerce Secretary and to Lincoln the same day. "No, that river runs through 5 different states before it goes in the ocean. The governor of each of those 5 states controls the part of the river running through his state. South Carolina is the 5th state. The river goes in the ocean in South Carolina. This part of the river belongs to South Carolina. The fort belongs to South Carolina. Get your federal troops out." They never answered him. He sent the same answer 14 days in a row in the morning and 14 afternoons in a row. They never replied to him. On day 15, he surrounded the fort with boats to prevent supplies from coming in. He put 5 cannons on the left side of the river, 5 cannons on the right side of the river. 3 weeks later, his son telegrammed Lincoln, "Sir, my men and I have 10 guns pointing at us. We only have 4 guns and they're not pointing at them. We are also about to starve. Sir, this part of the river belongs to South Carolina. The fort belongs to South Carolina. Please let me and my men leave." Lincoln answered him immediately, "No, I'm ordering you to fire on the boats." He fired on the boats, and his father reduced that fort to rubble in 1 hour. He forced the governor to kill his own son, and he also, knowing he would win the war, sacrificed 100 soldiers to start the war. He was an evil, evil man. He took over. If the South was outnumbered 20-to-1, why did it take 4 years? The Southern Army never had more than 60,000 men in it. But the commanders of the Southern Army were from the Army. They had fought battles in Mexico. Out of 100 men in the Southern Army, how many owned a slave? 1. How many were black? 6. The Southerners were fighting for the Constitution. They were fighting for our rights in the Constitution. The North was fighting to take our power away from the people and give it to the federal government. But they told everybody it was about slavery. Even we, when we were young children, were told it was about slavery. That is a lie. The South was fighting for our Constitution and our constitutional rights. We lost because in the first 2 years, the Southerners won every battle. After 2 years, they ran out of men. Their armies got smaller, began to lose battles. How many men were in Lee's army when he surrendered? 3,000. How many were in Grant's army? 80,000. Lee knew he wouldn't last 5 minutes on a battlefield. He had to surrender. That unconstitutional federal law giving the rights to the federal government to tell a state what it can and cannot do is still on our books. Democrats and Republicans have added 38 other federal laws based on Lincoln's law, which are equally unconstitutional, taking more power over our states and the people of those states. This is what happened. They had to poison the land of Ireland to do it. What kind of evil entity did that? It's still here in America. Example. We were all taught as doctors you have to take part of insurance companies to make a living. And the key one was Medicare, the federal one. We all took Medicare. In 2014, Medicare sent us all a letter. You must have an electronic medical record computer system running your office, turning it into a paperless office. By the 1st of January of 2015, it has to be approved by the federal government. There were 370 companies making electronic medical records, but only 5 of them were approved by the government. They were each $80,000. I dropped out of all insurances, but the great majority paid the $80,000 fee and turned their offices into paperless offices. That was in 2015. 2016, they started their performance improvement plan. In 15. In 15, you had to send in half your bills to Medicare with 4 new codes. Codes was how a doctor get paid. But these were things we never got paid for. Pulse and blood pressure. It had to have a special subcode. Subcode 1 meant you didn't look at it. Subcode 2 meant you looked and it was normal. Subcode 3 meant you looked and it was abnormal. But it better agree with what your electronic medical record said happened, or you're committing fraud. They knew that 90% of us outsourced our billing to professional billing companies because they changed the codes every 6 months. You don't want to rely on a local person. Oh yeah, I kept up with it. How do you know she's lying? Your income's going to go to the bottom for 6 months. This is what happened. The doctors had professional billing companies, and they only do what they get paid to do. What did Medicare pay for these 4 codes? Nothing. So that no professional billing company added them to any bill. That led to the doctor getting a 5% pay cut in 2016. That's when they went to 8 codes. 8 codes that had nothing to do with the patient at all. So they're not in the medical record. How many chairs are in your waiting room? What kind of door do you have on your waiting room door? The doctor has to put in the data on those 8 codes, because if he doesn't put the data in the computer system, he's committing fraud if he bills for it on a bill. All 8 codes had to be included on every bill. He calls the billing company. What's it going to cost me to pay for these 8 worthless codes. 15%. 15% is a key figure for the doctor. That's what he and his family live on after all the bills have been paid. He can't afford for his family to starve. He can't pay for it. So he calls Medicare. What if I flunk? Medicare says it's 8 codes. We're going to give ourselves a year to grade you. It'll be January of 2018 when you find out you flunked in 16. And that is when we go back to 16. We look at each payment you got for each of the 12 months of 16. We take out 15% from each of those months. We all add it up. You have 5 days to pay the 12-month fee. If you can't pay it, you lose your medical license. What did the doctor do? He shut his office down. He went to the local hospital begging for a job, and the hospitals gobbled them up. 2017 came, and they went to 28 codes. Who was the president in 16? Obama. Who was the president in 17? Trump. 28 codes in 17. Whoever didn't close in 16 closed in 17. Today, 98% of the doctors are in the hospital industry. In 2017, Trump's first year, the federal government introduced guidelines of care to our hospitals, which are harmful to the patient. The doctor, the nurse, and the hospital have to intentionally harm the patient, or they don't get paid. I had a large staghorn stone, kidney stone, in my right kidney. The doctor admitted me to the hospital. It took 5 hours for him to reduce that large stone. I woke up in the recovery room shaking in pain. The nurse saw that. Are you in pain? Yes, ma'am. All I can give you is 2 tablets of Tylenol in the water to swallow them. Tylenol won't work. Are you refusing the Tylenol? Yes. You made a good decision. 7 minutes ago, you were under general anesthesia. 50% of the patients who choose the Tylenol, when they go to swallow it, will aspirate it into their lungs and die. You made a good decision not to use it. Then she sedated me through the IV, which I was pleased. I fell asleep. When you're sleeping, you're not hurting. But they did that to start the 24-hour period of sedation. No one could wake me up during that time. They knew I had sleep apnea. 3 or 4 times every night when I'm sleeping, I stop breathing. When my heart rate falls to 50 beats a minute, my oxygen saturation will fall to 50%. I take a breath. My heart rate shoots from 50 up to 80. My oxygen sat goes from 50% up to 98%. It's like having a cardiac stress test 3 or 4 times a night. I was saved by a CPAP machine, which keeps my airway open. I can sleep all night and wake up refreshed in the morning. But they wouldn't let me use my CPAP machine. They kept me IV sedated for 24 hours, hoping to get my heart rate down to 30, get my oxygen sat down to 30%. Then when I take a breath, I'll have a heart attack and die. This kills 98% of those with sleep apnea. But I survived it. Who saved me? God did. When it got down to 50%, I took a breath. Boom. That's how I normally live. When I woke up the next day, 2 different nurses told me I was special. That was the first thing. The second thing was I was cold. They only give you 3 thin sheets to cover you, made of cotton. They get lukewarm. They don't get warm. I asked for a wool blanket. Wool is not allowed in our hospitals anymore. The doctor came in. I couldn't wake you up yesterday. I didn't say anything. He said, I'm going to take that Foley out and let you go home. When they took the Foley out, I had to have a bowel movement. I alerted the nurse, I need to get in the bathroom right away. She got me in there, and the toilet was sitting on the floor. I said, why is that so low? All our toilets are like that. I sat down just in time to have the large diarrhea bowel movement, and I realized after I did that my scrotum and balls were sitting in my stool. I need to take a shower. You're not allowed to take showers. Tommy, get the wipes out of the refrigerator. Ice cold wipes. Talk about inducing a heart attack. Who saved me? God. This is wrong. They treat us badly. They make us miserable when they should be doing the opposite, keeping us comfortable. They try their best to kill us. This is wrong. This is what they've been doing since 2017. They don't get paid unless they hurt us. Who's paying them? The federal fucking government. At the same time they were doing that, in 2015, President Obama sent the head of the DEA to every state. He met in state capitals with key legislators from that state and told them a lie, that their state was the number 2 state for prescription narcotic abuse. It was only Ohio that year, but they all believed him because he was head of the DEA. He handed out a law. If you pass this law, you won't be number 2 next year. Who wrote the law? The biggest health insurance company in America, Blue Cross Blue Shield. They wrote it. Every state passed it. The first state to pass it was Florida. They shut down 1,000 certified pain clinics in one day, which put 400,000 Floridians in chronic pain on the streets of Florida. Alabama was the second state he visited. They passed the law and shut down 400 certified pain clinics in one day, putting 160,000 chronic pain patients on the streets of Alabama. The third state he visited was Tennessee. We shut down 300 certified pain clinics in one day, and I was one of them. Boom. They put a news blackout. We were not notified that we were regular doctors' offices. What did that new law say? Only a pain specialist, someone defined as someone who did a pain fellowship in their residency. There were only 5 residencies that had to have pain fellowships because during their residency they didn't treat pain at all. 4 of them were referral services. Physical medicine is about physical therapy. Who was treating that patient's pain? The medical or surgery resident who referred them. Psychiatry is about mental health. Who was treating that patient's pain? The medical or surgical resident who referred them. Neurology is about strokes. Who was treating that patient's pain? the medical or surgery resident who was referring them. Same for neurosurgery. The only different one was anesthesia. Anesthesia's job as a resident is to put the patient to sleep so the surgery resident can do his job, and then wake the patient up and extubate them after the surgeon is done. Who's treating that patient's pain? The surgery resident. Because they don't treat pain in their residency, they had to have a pain fellowship in order to treat pain. The rest of us did doctorates in pain. What is a doctorate? It means every patient you treat is in pain. As a general surgeon, I treated car accidents, I treated cancer, I treated bowel obstructions, I treated gallbladder problems, I treated thyroid cancer. Every patient I saw was in pain, and I have to operate to get them better again, and that adds more pain. What is orthopedics? Everything's broken or dislocated. They're all in pain. What is OBGYN? 9 months of pain. And there are 10 volumes of books of things that cause chronic pain but doesn't require a surgeon. That's family practice and internal medicine. We do doctorates in pain, but they said, no, you're not allowed to be a pain fellowship. I called. I have 400 patients. They're all going to go through opiate withdrawal before they go to the street. What can I do for them? The health department said, ask him to bring a friend. I said, what? She said, if you see the friend first, that's a non-controlled visit. Then when you see the patient in pain, that's a controlled visit. You'll finish the day 50-50, Dr. Rudolph, and that's a good day in Tennessee. She was right. That's a good day. I called California, which finally alerted us to what was going on, to thank them for the alert. Did you send someone to Tennessee? Yes, we did. She testified in front of your legislature. She's all alone. Can you call her and give her support? I called her on the phone and she answered. She said, Dr. Rudolph, I know you're convinced that only Tennessee did this. I said, absolutely. She said, actually, it's national. I said, what? She said, he went to the state of Florida first. He's a federal official. We don't know his name and we don't know what department he's in. He told them a lie, that Florida was the number 2 state for prescription narcotic abuse. They must have believed him. He handed out the law. We don't know who wrote the law. He also handed out packets of cash. We don't know how much, but he promised to double the cash when the law was passed. Florida passed that law. That's what I testified to. Closed 1,000 certified pain clinics in one day. Put 400,000 chronic pain patients on the street of Florida. Closed 13 pharmacies. Closed one of the 2 major labs in Florida. The economic impact was huge. Alabama passed the law and closed 400 certified pain clinics in one day, put 160,000 on their street. I asked the legislature of Tennessee, why do you want to do this to your own people? But they didn't pay attention to me. They ignored me. They just kept working behind their desks. This is wrong, she said. They're doing this in every state. And every state passed that law. The federal government put 6.2 million chronic pain patients on our streets that year. building the opioid epidemic they were complaining about. What did they find on the street? Heroin, dirt cheap little green tablets. They kept their jobs, they kept the food on the table. The use of heroin skyrocketed in 2015. Then in 2016, our federal evil government decided to eliminate them. They started out killing 10%. What's 10% of 6.2 million? 620,000. 2 tons of fentanyl. $10 million worth of fentanyl. They had to move it to exactly the physical location of where the green leaves are turned into the green tablets, because you have to lace it into the liquid before it becomes a tablet. One man couldn't have done all that lacing. A team had to do that. And they did it. They killed 620,000 of them. But they had a problem. They couldn't publish that number because they'd show the rest of us what they were doing. There's no way to blame a doctor for 620,000 deaths. So they took the last zero off and reported it as 62,000, which, with the media's help, they vehemently blamed on the doctor. The next year, 74,000, but it was really 740,000. But 74, they blamed on the doctor again. The next year, 70,000. The doctor, shut that damn doctor down. They're hurting our country. During those 3 years, 16, 17, and 18, our federal government put 2,000 doctors treating chronic pain into federal penitentiaries. How? By colluding with the state medical boards. A medical hearing is not a courtroom. Rules of a medical board are not allowed in a courtroom. For instance, the state goes first, and all they do is stand up at their desk and read that letter of lies out loud. Then they sit. They don't have to show evidence. The medical board will say, we know him, we know he never lies. Why waste our time with evidence? The doctor, who they don't know, has to show evidence that the state man is lying. But they think the doctor's doing the lying and take the doctor's license away. The next day, he's not a doctor, she's not a doctor. They're at home. Knock, knock, knock on their door. They answer the door. A federal official. Step outside here. Turn around, I'm going to put handcuffs on you. Why are you doing this? Because your state, when they took your medical license away, named an entity called writing prescriptions for opiates for patients that did not warrant it. That is a federal offense. That allows me to take you directly to a federal penitentiary. And they'd march him off. They skipped the courtroom completely. He finally gets to call his lawyer. That damn letter full of lies got you in jail. I'll get you out of there this afternoon. He files a lawsuit. The judge calls the lawyer. You're saying all these are lies? Yes, but our medical board said they're all true. I'm throwing out your lawsuit. By putting 2,000 innocent doctors into federal penitentiaries, they put another 800,000 innocent chronic pain patients on the street. Add 800,000 to the 6.2 million, you get 7 million. In the next 5 years, they put another 500 doctors in federal penitentiaries and added another 200,000 to the street. Let's take a look at the poster I made. Now, we need a little time. What's on the left are the number of patients that were on the street. 6.2 million at the top. Add the 800,000, 7 million. Add the 200,000, 7,200,000. If you add the zero back, you'll see the numbers that were really killed. 620,000 when Obama was president. Obama put the doctors away. And now he okayed this. Trump took over in 2017, 74,000, but it was really 740,000. The next year it was 70,000, but really 700,000. During Trump's term of 4 years, they killed almost 4 million. Then Biden, but Biden was incompetent. That was Obama running our country, and he's the one that put him on the street. And boom, look at the number on the right. It's the same 7,200,000 that they put. They eliminated them all in 23. This is what I pointed out in my first video, Halloween in the doctor's office. I made it in 2018 to alert the country what they were doing. They did it. Now the numbers are down because the 7.2 million are gone. This is wrong. We need to take our country back to the original Constitution. There are only 3 jobs given to the federal government in our original Constitution. Job 1, protect us from foreign aggression. They get the military, they get the ambassadors. Job 2, how to write federal laws, but they have to be constitutional. Job 3, ensure domestic tranquility, which meant if one state invades another state to extend its border, federal troops will show up to push it back to its original border. But no state invaded any other state to extend its border. So it's really only 2 jobs, not the 38 jobs that they're doing. Lincoln's law is still on our books. Those 38 other federal laws take more and more power away from our states and from our people. What's coming is not going to be good for us. We need to take our country back. They want us to fight another civil war, which we will lose. We cannot match the Air Force. We cannot match the Navy. We cannot match the Marine Corps. We have to avoid a civil war. What can we do? We form a new political party called the American Party. We open in every state. We take back the House of Representatives. We take back the Senate. Then we elect a president from our own party, and we go back to the original Constitution. The federal government, which is this unmeasurable morass, is got big, and the swamp is gone. The people of every state should decide. The state governments were colluding with what ended up with that law. They became accomplices to murder. They did this to us, the people. Time to take our country back. Donations to the American Party can be sent to Post Office Box 1169 in Manchester, Tennessee, zip code 37349. I will add more videos in the future. What does a totalitarian system do when it's forced to deal with the truth? It'll call it a lie. What I told you is the truth, not a lie. I'm done. Thank you.